Life is filled with unique experiences that are shaped and blended by race, ethnicity, culture, and spirituality. This thing called life is a space where we can share our experiences so we can learn, grow, and empower change. Our logo was created by Marianne Louise. Thank you, Marianne. The music you hear is by Zakhar Valaha from pixbay.com. My name is Atlas, and today we listen to Holly Young, a modern-day oracle blending wisdom with today's comprehension. Holly shares her experience working with spirit, animals, and mystical beings. We start the conversation with her describing what it was like after the passing of her father, and the shift that took place both on the inside and outside. Having to let go of your dad was a challenge. Do you want to chat more about that, what that was like for you?
Well, I decided that I wasn't going. Actually, this is kind of cool. So when my dad died, I think it was like the month after he died, I was in the shower and I felt like I could hear him like talking in my head, kind of, like my inner voice. And it was really strange because he used the word ego, and that was not in my dialogue, like very often at all. It is now more. But I was only 20 and I didn't meditate, I didn't know anything about self-care. I knew about psychology, but I not that aware. But he straight up said to me like that death was a blessing because it kind of like took his ego out of the storytelling of who I am, and that he could be closer to me now, and he could never be that close as he is in death as he was when he was alive, because now he can see all of my experiences and he can see all of my intentions and where my decisions were stemming from. And so that was like a very psychic and like mental thing for me. But it was so, and I was more skeptical at that time, but it was so loud that it was like hard for me to be skeptical about it.
It must have been at least a little bit scary, kind of. I mean, being a skeptic of like psychic and mediumship and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you're kind of hearing these things. It's like you're not crazy, but know that you're still hearing these things, mm-hmm. And I would imagine that's kind of a little jarring. Yeah.
Well, I had a little buffer.
Okay.
Because about 3 days after my dad had died, that time period, I was sleeping and the sun was up, but it was the morning, and I felt my cat kneading mm-hmm. on me, and I woke up expecting to see my cat, and there was no one in the room, and I instantly saw an image of my dad in my imagination, and when he would wake us up as children, even in high school, he would do it super gently, and he would like knead us like a cat.
I love that.
And
that's fantastic.
I had my imagination, it went straight to, like, I didn't, and my imagination just went straight to him doing that, and I knew that it was him. And so I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Well, it turns out my sister had the same experience near the same time. I don't know if it was the same day, and she started talking to me about it. And that was like the little buffer. And
well, that was like, it seems like it was a time where you're like, okay, something's going on. Something's happening. I don't know quite what's going on, but something's afoot.
Yeah.
And I think it seems like it was nice to have that experience with your sister.
It was.
And to have that experience, not only with someone but like someone you care about too, a family member.
Yeah.
And I feel like it made it more real.
Which part?
Like the your dad needing you, because it sounds like
it did. It was very physical, yeah.
But it kind of like magnified I mean, I feel like it would magnify the experience when like someone, you know, your sister is going through something similar. You're like, okay, there's something definitely. Definitely happening.
It's a really, if that was a coincidence, that would be like I think I would be kidding myself.
Yeah.
I'm suspicious of the coincidence. But because of all of that, I mean, it really shot me. So there were those that, you know, that happened. And because of that shower experience, instead of me spiraling into like, and feeling so much in love with my dad, spiraling into like something that was darker, I decided to learn what he meant when he said like we're never apart from each other, that we're always together. So I started digging deep and doing research into like people's experiences when they died and then come back to life. That was where I started. Sylvia Browne, not all Sylvia Browne, but Joseph Campbell came into my life, and I don't know who else. But I started learning about hypnotherapy too, just for fun, to see where that took me.
I had no idea. Oh, interesting.
And then Sylvia Browne, she would talk so much about like new age kind of concepts and things like that, of like the council of heaven, like what happens after you die, and like that you're greeted by all of your loved ones, and that actually made me cry when I heard that, because what an experience to have like all of your loved ones there smiling at you, not just like people, but like animals, and like that way I just like
that you've ever known.
Can't even. That would be everyone on the planet, I feel like. So that was like, and then I met my friend Donna Lakes. She practiced an intuitive reading on me, which was my first one. I did start meditating by the time I was 21, I believe. And I started learning the power of the mind and mindfulness, and about confidence and insecurity and self-esteem, you know, that stuff. I didn't even know what any of that meant. So I just wanted to make myself more powerful so that I was able to get through grief. I kept hearing when he died that, oh, you'll never get over this, and grief is a lifelong thing. And I was like, I understood that because I really felt that. But there came to a time when I started doing self-care and learning about vibration and about the universe being what we are. I started questioning that and wondering if I'm holding myself in a limiting belief, telling myself that I'm going to be grieving the rest of my life, rather than looking at another opportunity or another way. And being open to what if there wasn't any grief? Right. What would that be like? And if I never focus on it, how could it be? Right. So I felt intuitively, I think, that I just needed to be extra strong so that I could get through it. I mean, mentally strong, highly aware, stuff like that.
I feel like your dad passing away was in some ways like a beautiful thing, because I mean, not only I feel like you had a better understanding of the world, but also yourself, and like you got this wonderful connection with him. But then you started kind of like learning and like educating yourself and shifting the way you viewed the world and yourself, and it seemed like it was just like this domino effect. And and like the other thing that I'm wondering, because as you were talking about this moment where you kind of, your dad passed away and you had this moment in the shower, and I'm wondering if like something inside of you opened up, and like that's how, like your dad passing away opened up something within you that allowed some of this psychic ability to happen. Do you feel that way? It's almost like it was like some sort of like a key that him passing would be like the domino, and it would kind of click something within you, and allow something to open up within you to have an enhance your psychic abilities.
I do really feel like it was the power of love.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I did learn that yes, this was like my biggest nightmare, and it was the biggest gift I could have ever gotten from him, because I am like, it blows my mind how I am now. Like, I learned about power, but it's not even about me. Like, I learned all of these things, and I'm able to help others relate to it. Like, it's not like when I talk to people, they're like, "Oh, I don't understand that at all." No, like, over and over and over again, I get responses that are like, people get it, and you can tell, and it's like relatable to them. And I do really feel like the gift of death that my dad gave me, which was a hidden blessing, it helped show people peace, essentially. Like, it, like, that we can be in peace and have like these really hard things happen, or things that are just devastating and break your heart and make you feel like you're never going to get out, like trapped and in prison in your own stories, your own reality, and that it's like eternal imprisonment. I'm a great example of that not happening. That, like, I was told grief would be this one way, that death looks this one way, and I ascended that information, and I found a different way that works better for me. That not only works better for me, it brings peace to me. It taught me what enlightenment is, and it showed me how to show others what it is too. So it was like way beyond, like, I never thought my life would ever transform into this
and unfold in this way.
Yeah, so it is like the greatest gift for me. I feel like a modern nun, like, walking around.
I feel like you are. You are a modern nun. You are the angel that walks Omega. And so, but I also, at the same time, like, listening to you and how you sort of have transcended and changed, like, significantly, I feel like that also took some time too. It wasn't like, you read a book and now I'm okay, right? Do you want to tell a little bit about, like, it seemed like after your dad passed, you started to learn more. You started to, like, as you're learning, and I feel like people are entering your life that view healing a different way, hypnotherapy. So what was that like for you, sort of like the last, like, 5 or 6 years, and this transcendence?
Well, at first I did have to learn a lot. I had to learn a lot, and I was so passionate about studying. Like, there was nothing that kept me from it. I was like, okay, so there was that, and then I had to practice, and that was a huge part of it. I couldn't just read up on things and, like, expect that I was capable of talking that talk without walking the walk. I had to practice, and I had to be very patient with myself, and I learned a lot about the brain. And I think that scientific methods in science and physics, metaphysics too, really helped me a lot. So I went deep into studying DNA and physics and science and the brain and how the body works. So I did those more practical studies, but I also did research into energy and the electromagnetic field, which is science, and vibration and frequency, and because information that was more palpable for me was very helpful, because I do have somewhat of a scientific brain, a logical, like, the logic, especially at that time, really helped me. And it's confirming, of psychic abilities and things like that. So I felt like there was years and years, let's see, I think of research, of finding teachers who really fit me, like Tara Brock, she really fit me, and Joseph Campbell, and William Henry, Eckhart Tolle. And there's probably several others, but so I think I was from probably the age, I think I was 23 years old, and up until I was about, I'd say 30, I was like really learning and practicing. I was doing yoga, I was meditating a lot. I started a 7-year-long priestess training program. I went to like my first self-care retreat in Colorado. I needed references of like how it felt in my body, to like the sensations in my body, in several different ways, but like I needed to see what stress felt like, and then what it felt like when I released stress and things like that. And I needed to be able to take my awareness and put it into different parts of my body to just really get that and especially towards the breath, get that reference of like what it feels like, the experience of when my eyes are like looking outward, and then what my eyes feel like when they're looking inward. There's like a big difference. And then what my gaze feels like when it's like narrow, and what it feels like when it's wide. But I didn't realize that there are so many subtle feelings in the body, especially at first when you start bringing your awareness into your body, like especially with the breath. Like it was so subtle. I remember my first breathwork class, and they were talking about like just breathe and feel your breath, and I was like, I don't feel anything, like nothing at all. But that was a good teacher, because they were giving you references like, oh, the coolness of the air coming through your nostrils, and you feel it above your lip, and you can feel the coolness,
the sensations
coming down your is that esophagus? Yeah. And what is that like? And then when you're breathing out and filling your belly and blah blah blah, they said step by step where the sensations were. I didn't even realize that was an important thing at all. So, and I didn't understand why would I consider that important to feel the sensations in my body. But yoga really helped with that a lot. I had so much release of emotion in through yoga. Just really great teachers too. I forgot what we were talking about.
So we were talking about this the past 6 or 7 years, and it seemed what I'm hearing is it was one part like very concrete science learning, like black and white and statistics and like graphs and things like that. But then there was this other part that was very like ethereal or like energy work, and it seemed like you kind of had a balance of something that was very grounding like science and something that was very airy like energy or psychic and mediumship, but you were learning both at the same time. But then you kind of, and you said this a few different times, it was practice. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but you started to like answer it, and I'm like, well, what does that mean for practice? And it seemed like it was like meditation. It was doing these mindfulness practices. It was breath works. It was doing meditation. It was doing yoga. And I'm wondering if there are any other ways that you were sort of practicing these things.
So there were several different ways. I was doing a lot of mindfulness practices. So throughout those years, I would label my thoughts.
Okay.
And so I would label like critic mind, perfection mind, worry mind, what were the other ones? Complaining mind. Because I wanted to, because thoughts can go through, and sometimes we don't even, not even sometimes, what I've noticed was that oftentimes I never noticed I was complaining in my own head, or I did research into like complaining mind specifically, and it was very difficult to see because it's entertaining to complain.
Right.
And so like banter between people
Mm-hmm.
can be just like it's fun to just complain back and forth. So I wanted to see all of those thoughts, so I would catch them, and I would realize, oh, complaining mind, I'm complaining right now, and no matter if I was saying it out loud or what. So that was a big practice, of mine. Big practice was anytime I had a thought come in that was on my list of noticing at the time, I would hit it, or I would be like, oh, there it is, complaining mind, and I would just let my body be what it is. I wouldn't try and make my thoughts stop at all, and I would feel the sensation, see what my body felt like, and then I would just like let the thought go through like it naturally does, and then I'd go back to what I was doing. And I just continually did that, and it evolved into being very compassionate towards myself and realizing like my brain is kind of like structured in habits, and that it's not my fault if a thought continuously comes in. It's just wired that way. And
You've
so
just been doing it for so long that it's just kind of the
Yeah.
way.
Well, I think, it is like since you were born, you were wiring your brain. But I think it's even beyond that. I think that our DNA is also can be a part of that. There's something I learned about DNA, recording experiences, and then we relive those experiences that were recorded from our ancestors and our family members. So it's not just like the neurons firing in the brain and making a habit of those firing. I think that it can be, and I may or may not know about this, but it could be more than that.
Right.
Like it's never just one of our little ecosystem
Yeah.
here. It's going to be the firing of the brain, the cell memory,
Right.
and then beyond what we're even aware of at all.
Right.
Subconscious.
I mean, I think I like that because I feel like science is kind of saying, oh, it's A, and spiritual is saying, no, it's B, and it's like, well, it's both.
Yeah.
The both things are happening at once, and
Yeah.
it's not like one or the other. Because I know there's, when I was in school, I was researching like epigenetics, and that's very much sort of our genes are passed on, and our environment affects our genes in the way that they're expressed. So it's very similar in the sense. Epigenetics is like part of it is the idea that our genes are passed down from generation to generation. I think that there's both this in reincarnation, and you have these lessons that you gotta learn, but there's also sort of like physical DNA too that's happening as well.
Yeah, I would say that reincarnation is one and the same as DNA too, because of if you're focused on non-separation and that the I am presence in me is the same I am presence in you, then reincarnation is just, it's like experience being relived. It's not necessarily like I'm separate from you and you're living a different life than I am. Or you're reliving lives over and over and over again. I guess I turned that into more of a oneness type of example of reincarnation. So rather than your soul is doing this, my soul is doing this, it's more like we are one. We are both doing this simultaneously, and I'm not separate from you. I do believe that we're living the same experiences even, but we just don't know it, and we don't have any proof of that. But I believe that omnipresence in God is just that powerful.
Right.
That we're able to be two different snowflakes.
Right. We can be very different but the same at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I focus on it that way too because we're whole. We're whole beings. And if you're whole in your reality, you're whole, then you're going to see yourself in everybody. So I don't want to be reincarnated like that. Like in a way where like you're less or more than something else.
Right.
I feel like that's an old paradigm,
Right.
and that's just not true in my reality anymore. I feel like I can be like multifaceted, and not to say like I'm the most powerful like God or anything like that, but like that God is in all things and omnipresent. So there's a miracle of the ability to live as one like that, where space and time are illusions. And I don't know how, but I don't need to.
Right.
I can experience it.
Right.
Because our imagination is that big.
Right.
Or infinite, I guess.
Going back to, this idea that I am you and you are me, I remember sort of like having this epiphany and coming to terms with that. And I remember using that as a way to be compassionate to other people. And when I remember the person I was living with, it was difficult at times. And I remember anytime frustration or something would come up, that was my cue to say, hey, that's you. You were like that once.
Yeah.
You viewed the world like that. You had that anger. You had that, this and that. All their stuff, you had that before.
Here's your opportunity to love you, but you hate it.
Exactly. And so it was like not only, so after like coming to terms with, we are all each other, and then I would use that as a way to express unconditional love for other people.
Yeah.
And so if anything did, like I said, if anything did come up and any emotions come up, it was like my little tug of like, that's you. So if you want, this is an opportunity for you to be compassionate with yourself, because when you look at them, that is you.
So sometimes it's very, like you said, challenging to love that person who you see yourself in and didn't like that part of yourself. So I used that to my advantage and came up with a different way.
Okay.
So like if I see that, what I came up with was just feel the experience of respecting their experience and that I don't know it. And not to say that, so like now we're kind of getting into like separation in a good way. Like I understand that in the whole of our reality, we're told and our perception is that I cannot experience what you're experiencing. So I'm going to use that as in a compassionate way. And like I get that. I don't know your experience. I don't know what you're going through or have gone through. I don't know your past. I don't know your DNA. And I'm going to honor that experience, or honor and respect it because I don't know it. And I did that, well, number one, because I heard someone else say that. But it really resonated with me and stuck with me because I would want someone to kind of feel that way too about me. Like realize like they don't know everything. And I love utilizing the power of the unknown. It's so good because it leaves everything so wide open to it just being the way that it is. And I don't have to do anything to change it. And I think there's just like a lot of power in that.
It's like letting go and like and saying, and like there's a lot of like humility and humbleness in saying like I don't know. And again, I think there's a lot of like just like letting go and accepting things when you kind of say I don't know. I don't know.
And I can still love you. I don't need to know.
Right.
So I did switch it around that way. Now, whenever I'm having like a kerfuffle with somebody,
kerfuffle. Can you spell that?
K. It starts with a K.
Fuffle. K-fuffle.
I will do soul work because that's very helpful for me because it's more experiential. And I always work with angels when I imagine angels. I do a lot of angel work. That's one of my main focuses.
Well, is that because I know, we were going to chat about your challenge and your dad and what that was like. Did you want to talk about, because you started talking about angels and stuff like that. Did you want to talk about, what did you want to talk about?
With the ghosts?
Yeah.
The ghosts.
Ghosts and goblins.
Yeah. Goblins. I know what goblin houses look like.
Goblin. You don't know what goblin house is?
No, I do.
You do?
You know what? Yeah, there's one here in our woods.
There's one here?
Yeah.
Where?
It's behind the, is that Southwest campground?
Okay.
Over there? Yes.
By the tents?
Or north, behind it, yeah. By the
Southwest.
tents.
I think it's Southwest.
Yeah. It's so crazy because it's like a hole that's like about two feet in diameter, and it looks like it has these crazy spikes coming out from the hole.
And it's here?
Yeah, I'll have to show you.
You should.
Okay.
I hope so.
I thought it would, yeah.
So when you see, do you intuitively know? Or like how do you what's the process that kind of happens?
Do you mean with ghosts?
Well,
Or
first
with
the goblins.
With goblins.
Like when you saw that, were you just like, oh, that's what that is?
Oh yeah, it's like it drops into my head.
Okay.
So I'm very, what's that called? The one where you just know clairvoyant?
No, it's
clairsentient.
Yes, when you just know things, right?
That's a big part. That has been a big part of my psychic abilities, but after my priestess training, I opened up a lot of my psychic abilities on purpose. So I had more references. So I do. So I can communicate with animals, and it's so because of that practice, I have a lot of references to what it's like when a being from a different dimension is talking to me. Okay. It's mostly like, it's like an image gets dropped into my head. My imagination, right in. And like instantly when you said goblin, I had that house drop into my head, and I could see what the goblin looked like. And this is how animals talk too. So, and this has been confirmed for me for years. It makes me sound crazy. So it's not something I always talk about, but I've had a lot of like experiences with, I saw a gnome in the physical form here, in physical form. It was my first actual real physical form of like a fae folk being.
First one was here at Omega.
Yeah, in the woods, and right after I went to the production meeting, like I think this was
this
2019.
This year? Oh, 2019. Okay.
And I told everybody, and some fae folk, they don't like it when you go and tell everybody, but fairies, they can read everything about you, so they'll know where your heart is, how innocent you are, how many times you lied. Like they can read everything. You can't keep anything from them.
From fairies.
Yeah. So if you're gonna go and tell everybody, and
they know
they know that you're going to.
Can you tell the fairies that I won't tell?
I don't have to tell them; they'll know.
I want to see them. I won't tell.
In the
fairies,
they live in the fourth dimension, which is the heart chakra.
Okay.
The fifth dimension.
Okay.
The throat chakra, and they're rising, just how we are ascending and rising in through our chakras and dimensions. So
as someone's awareness changes, they can experience and see, hear, and feel different things that are there.
Yeah. It's called ascension.
Okay.
So when we ascend, we are capable of comprehending what was once incomprehensible to us. So, and I like to use that example of the ability to comprehend God, because for so long it's deep in our DNA. It's a good example. So long, and it's embedded in our DNA, the limiting belief of it's impossible to comprehend God. And I like that example because there have been so many situations where I have comprehended God, and it was more experiential. It didn't have to do so much with words, but it was like a spectrum of experience. And that actually was when I realized what ascension was when you're able to comprehend what was once incomprehensible. And anything that's like has to do with ascension or enlightenment, it's happening right here, right now. So it's in every single moment. So the way that I would describe ascension, the description has to be universal, something that could happen in every single moment. So you are comprehending more than what you ever thought was comprehensible right now. And because you're always ascending. Ascending is omnipresent. It's all powerful too, just like God. Same with enlightenment.
Okay.
It happens right here, right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be talking about it. It wouldn't even be
And so as you ascended, you have experience with ghosts.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about ghosts?
So as I kept meditating more, I had a very direct experience with a young girl who was a ghost.
Okay.
And
do you want to like define like what would you say?
Okay.
Like what is a ghost?
Yeah, I can definitely explain. So what I've learned is that a ghost is consciousness that is looped in what appears to be space and time reality.
Okay.
So space and time are illusions, but the illusions exist. They exist as illusions in reality. So the illusion is that this consciousness believes it's still alive, and it's in this. It kind of gets
stuck in between almost.
Right, kind of. But it doesn't see it as being stuck in between. It thinks it's fully alive. And they're kind of just like stuck in this loop in space and time. Their illusion of space and time. We have our own, it's another dimension when you're living in a space and you're believing you're alive, right, and you have your own space and time. So that is, from my experience, from helping those energetic conscious, like those souls that are, so soul, I'll explain this a little bit because it's helpful. So I am presence, hold on, let me start over. So I have to explain a little bit so that it's more comprehensible. Spirit is I am presence. It's within all being. Soul is the unique expression of I am presence. So that's when we get into like the snowflake. Everyone's like a different snowflake.
Okay.
It's a different expression of the same thing, of I am presence. When consciousness appears to have all of these gems of like of unique expression in the web. Yeah, the web that we're all connected in. Well, when this unique expression when the being dies or the body dies, and the unique expression is so like attached, it could be attached. I'm not exactly sure if that's the right word, but it ends up being like a loop.
Okay.
And coming to terms with like there could be like an attachment to death too, and a limiting belief of what death is. But anyway, those are all stories. I just stick with the energy of it. It's energy, consciousness, that it's a quality of energy that's just kind of staying there. So what I would go do is I would meditate, tap in, and raise. I would open a sacred circle of angels, raise the consciousness to the realm of the angels, so we're completely surrounded by angels. And I would just sit and let like the images drop in. So I would see like the loop or the soul's face. I would see what qualities are happening. I would tune in like with my emotions and the story that they're telling. And then I will talk to them and have angels there in my imagination. And I'll tell them, that they died, and that the house that they're now in, or the space they're in now, is with these other people, and that's why there's so many strange things happening in your loop. And then I'll show them the experience inside my body too. So it's not just like me talking. I will like breathe, and I'll feel the experience of like being stuck here. This is like feeling alive, but like, and not knowing that your body is dead, physically dead and mortal. I'll feel it in my body. So it's like talking with an animal. Animals talk experientially. If you see something in your imagination, it helps them for you to feel it in your body too. So I do that, and then I'll feel and I'll tell them that there is a better way, there is peace. And I always imagine and see an open portal of light, white light, and I will tell them, like, this is the portal to heaven, this is what it feels like, this is your other option, this is peaceful, this is like, you'll feel bliss. And I always have I'll let just the imagination with the angels take the being through the portal, and I've never had any being say no to this. Okay. And I've always convinced them.
You've always
and I've done it several times. I don't do it now.
Does any, because it seems like you've done this a good number of times. Does any one particular stick out to you? Like, remember when you did that one, worked with that soul?
The one I'm thinking of that this whole time that I've been using an example in my own head was this older man, and he was like this bald Caucasian man, and he just didn't understand what was going on. Like, his consciousness just couldn't grasp what happened when his body died. Like, I think he was very lonely, and he was just in that house all the time anyway.
Because sometimes I hear souls are attached to people that are here, and that can happen, and that can make it difficult for them to not like want to leave. And it's not like, oh, I'm just kind of confused and I need some help. It's like, no, I definitely want to be here, and it's because that person's there, and I'm gonna hang out with them for a very long time.
So that's so funny that you say that, because it sounds the same when, like, someone dies in your life and you just want to be with them all the time. Like the opposite direction. This person, they in particular, I think that they were really attached to their environment.
Okay.
They really just loved their environment.
Okay.
But I mean, it could be so many different things. Emotions can be very strong and have very, like, impactful vibrations that just don't go away. EMT is a good example of that. There's also scientific proof that, like, emotions don't necessarily just disappear. You know, have you ever gotten so angry that it feels like a burst coming out of your body, or like so shocked that it feels like you've just, like, exploded?
Kind of, yeah.
Or like I've had an experience where I was meditating with a group of people, complete silence, and then one of the women that we were meditating she screamed, like a blood-curdling scream, and it felt like the wind, like, cut through my body, and there was no wind, but we were inside, like, a tent, and the tent even moved. So it's
did she share what happened? Like, what? Why would
nobody talked about it? No one discussed it or anything. We just let it happen. Everyone stayed in silence, and we just kept meditating.
I kind of love it.
Acceptance, and we just kept going.
Hey, it happens, you know?
Yeah.
It's one of these things that all the ghosts that you seem to have worked with, I mean, they seem like they were fairly pleasant, and eventually they're like, you know what, I'll go. But I feel like there's maybe some that aren't.
You know... from my experience, the ones that aren't, I've never been afraid of either.
Okay.
Like, I've been around, like, there were two different ones that were very, like, they were like a dark shadow, or like dark smoke. That's what they look, and I physically saw them, like, with not my imagination, it was physical form. And I was surprised because I didn't feel like a shock in my system. Like, if I were watching, like, a horror movie, and it's like, it wasn't like that. I just felt like normal. Like,
it's like, oh, there you are.
Like, okay, I'm here, and there's some weird shape of a shadow. I don't know what you are, but you're here. I had another experience that was really scary. There was it's supposed to be scary. I was living at my sister's house in Detroit, and prior to her living there, there was a student who had died she overdosed in the house. One day it was late at night, and I was just like boiling some water, and the water like steamed up, all the windows. I walk into the kitchen, and I see from, the far window, like I see hands coming down the window. And I saw the handprints, and then I saw them come down the window. And I'm sitting there like, no, there's someone on the other side. So I like opened the door, and I was like, hello, like anybody there? And I looked.
This sounds like a movie.
I know.
This sounds like you might get murdered at any second.
I know. In Detroit. I took a closer look, and those handprints were definitely inside. The steam was inside, like the condensation. And so in that moment, I was like, I should be feeling super like choking on the inside, or like something where I can't breathe, I had this expectation. I didn't feel anything. I just kind of like turned around and calmly walked out of the room, and I went to the hallway and kind of stood there and just kind of like looked. But it wasn't what I expected at all. It wasn't scary. So yeah, and I've also had like really crazy dreams that were like demonic dreams. But in those dreams, I was powerful, and I got I got the demons to leave or change form. Okay. Or I faced them, and then they weren't scary anymore. I had one dream with the devil, and he was chasing me and my friends, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna like run away. I want, like, what's going on? So I turned around and I asked him, what do you want? And they said, I want to play. And I was like, okay, what do you want to play? And they were like, oh, like this game. And I was like, all right, we're going to play this game. My ex-boyfriend he had nightmares about me going up to huge monsters. I'm like, trying to befriend the monster, and he's in the background like, no, you're going to die. And I'm like, oh no, it's going to be great.
They just want to play.
Yeah.
They just want to play.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
And it ended up being fine. Well, anyway, I also did angel work with a huge group of looping souls or ghosts at this hotel that was like a really old hotel in the northeast coast of Florida. Okay. And
like St. Augustine or something like that?
Wait, is that no, not St. Augustine. It's Amelia Island. Amelia? Something like that. It's by this.
Is it by Georgia? Is it Georgia and Florida? Like by?
Yeah, it's like really close to Georgia.
Okay.
But it's on the East Coast, and it's like up north.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I think if you drove like 2 hours north or something, you can get into Georgia.
Okay.
So I was there with my partner at the time, and we were helping an entire group like go into heaven. And I could, in my mind's eye, my imagination, I could see like children and women and men just like walking into this portal, like all sorts of different people. And there were some really harsh people too, like criminals and going through that portal. And after we did that, we walked outside, and in all of the tables, the metal tables that have like that kind of like what's that called, those tables with like the diamond pattern, the metal ones, we walked outside, and so there were a whole bunch of those like helicopter seedlings.
Oh, okay.
Like on the table, but they weren't just flat on the table, they were all sticking up straight. Like somebody took each one and put them in the holes.
Really?
And this was after we did like the whole portal thing and everything. And it was not like that when we walked in, and we were in there for 15 minutes, and there's no way that anything could have happened that quickly.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, and there was a chair, one chair. There was nobody at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
We were there alone on purpose. Like, there was a chair in the yard where we started, where we were meditating,
Mm-hmm.
and just randomly, it was a big yard, and someone put a chair right there. Yeah. So. The whole chair thing I'm like skeptical of, although I do feel intuitively that was like, at least if it wasn't assigned by somebody who is, in the unknown realms, that it was somebody who was aware of what we were doing. But the table thing, I'm like beside myself, because there was like at least 3 to 5 tables.
I like that you're still like a little bit, I mean, you've had like all these experiences, and yet you're still like a little skeptic.
Yeah.
I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to be like, all right, maybe not everything, but I think it's healthy to question things.
I've had great confirmation. I have through like especially speaking with animals. That's been one of my greatest confirmations for like the metaphysical reality.
Okay.
Which just means beyond the physical.
Okay.
So energetic and the unseen stuff. But I really don't know where that chair came from. Intuitively, I can feel it and know it. But what I've learned from intuition is like I will like intuit something, and I just feel wise when I like mark it. And I'm like, oh, I'll pin that and see how things pan out. I do that because of the ego making stories.
Okay.
And stories,
trying to understand things.
Yeah. Stories keeps you in a trance.
Yeah.
So it's just a healthy way when you have like a healthy psyche,
right, to
just like pin it and see where it goes. Like I don't need to say, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Definitively.
Because we don't need to know. I don't know, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know, and
it's
that's
just something I noticed.
Okay. This is something I noticed.
Yeah.
So do you still do work with ghosts?
Not necessarily,
okay,
unless I really like in the moment I feel like I do need to respond to the moment.
Okay.
But that is just my MO for life.
Okay.
Like if something is really calling out to me and I should respond, I will respond. Sort
of like your when I heard you say that, I was reminded of your dad, because I feel like that's something your dad like, oh, like if I need to, then I'll respond.
Yeah.
And sort of going back to a full loop, if what's someone who might be listening that might be going through grief, what would you suggest anyone that was going through grief, using your experience to help someone else?
Well, I suggest allowing your body to feel how it feels, and noticing anytime you tell yourself to stop being a certain way or stop being any way. Because when we tell ourselves to stop being a way, then there's an underlying tone that says that we're not good enough, that the way that we're being is not enough, that's wrong. And that is like judging yourself. So I suggest noticing sensations in your body when you're grieving. Give the sensation maybe a one-word description, and then just be with that sensation as a sensation and not labeled as wrong or right. Yeah. Because when we listen to our sensations, that's care, and care is love. So it is the foundation of self-care, and it's sustainable, it's self-sustainable.
I like how you're framing it, because it's almost as if we are not those feelings, and we're kind of like separate. I mean, we're kind of separate for them, but also I imagine, you kind of said taking care of. You're sort of taking care of these parts and taking care of grief, and we can kind of look at it in that way, like taking care of our grief and allowing the grief to come up, and allowing ourselves to feel grief, and maybe naming it. Name this grief, and not saying good or bad, but just sort of naming it to kind of acknowledge it, be with it, and then let it go.
Yeah. So I do feel that grief and patience go hand in hand.
Okay.
And I would also suggest widening your perspective. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to put an effort in when you are depressed or grieving, and there's a process to that. That's just like where you're at in your process. So honoring that and respecting that part of yourself, or part of your experience, and letting that go through and run its course. One thing that I really live by, one statement that I live by is that, and this is related even though it doesn't sound like it right away, but I'm not going off topic, that reality is an illusion, or it exists as an illusion. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It exists, but it's an illusion, and that we are the magicians of that illusion. So when you learn how to make reality work with you rather than against you, and you learn how to be that magician, then you learn empowerment. You learn how how to go about life, how to play the game.
Those are beautiful things. Yeah, I feel like our thoughts are powerful and our feelings are powerful, and those are hand in hand. And when we can kind of know that, we can change things and shift things, and not get stuck. Sometimes I feel like we get stuck, and we get stuck easily. The last question that I wanted to ask you is, if someone was listening and wanted to support you, what would that look like?
To me, okay, so that would look, so if someone wanted to support me, I don't need much. What I would require is for them to listen to what I have to say with an open heart.
Okay.
And even if they don't agree with what I have to say, still taking the information and seeing how it pans out in their life as they continue to live it. Yeah. That's
perfect. That's wonderful. So if someone wants to support you, all they gotta do is just be open.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Thanks.
Holly, thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting, and I hope we can do this again.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun chatting with you. Yeah. I feel like we could chat for like another hour.
Holly currently lives and works in Asheville, North Carolina, where she continues to foster inclusivity and spiritual beliefs. The music you hear is by Oleski Kaplunski from Pixabay.com. If you or someone you know would like to share their story, visit our website at thisthingcalledlife.center and click the media page, or simply email us at thisthingcalledlife7@gmail.com. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe.